It is Monday, August 26th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very early get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. We did a little bit of sweeping and lots of reps. I loved it, really. A lot of reps. There was a lot of people at today's class. Usually it's like a private between me and a purple belt, and I mean I get some really good input there. But we had some additional players today, so we were basically doing two sets of things where I was helping a gentleman work on his guard retention and a few little tricks that I've managed to cultivate. But yeah, so we worked that, and we worked something else, and I kept taking it to like a I don't know, it was a weird kind of short arm triangle crossface kind of thing, and it was working, and it was easy to get with the position we were doing. It was a specific sweep where you've pulled your opponent's arm over to one side, crossing their face, and you kind of cock off to the side, reach under and grab the leg and sweep them, and you end up on top. Well, I was positioning myself to where my chest was directly over his tricep and pushing down on his throat, and then I was reaching up from the underside there and kind of pulling on the underside of his chin there and locking it down into a rear naked grip, but I had my palm on his forehead. But either way, it was an effective choke because he tapped, and I asked him several times. I'm like, dude, am I just neck cranking you, or is that like an actual choke? He's like, oh, I'm feeling it choking me. So, well, all right, you know, I'll take your word for it. I mean, because it did look kind of neck cranky. Either way, the gentleman tapped. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and then we did some interesting transitions from the foot. You know, I got back with after the gentleman that I was working with left, I went over and worked with the other two gentlemen, and they were working some De La Riva stuff, and I hardly ever get an opportunity to work De La Riva, so we just went with it. Or I just went with it. You know, at first I was just watching, and it's leg stuff. And I'll be honest here, I have no leg game. I really don't work the legs. I need to be incorporating it in because I find myself in a position for a heel hook quite a few times, and I think if I were geared to be reaching for it, that I probably would have been able to set it up and get the submission. But I did roll on Sunday too. And that was a lot of fun. I got in a nice fundamentals class, and then afterward, I got in a couple rolls. And the first one I rolled with a white belt, and the second one I rolled with a brown belt. And while I was not getting as much buy on the brown belt, I was finding opportunities to really feel out my own game, and I did put him in danger a couple times. I was working towards a good triangle choke, but I didn't have my positioning right. And I think, for one thing, if I would have had my knee in a little bit tighter on his shoulder, that would have made things a lot better. And of course, if I'd broken down his posture a little bit better beforehand, because he was actually pulling out, and that's one of the reasons why I wasn't able to complete the triangle. I don't know, maybe I could have kickstanded up, you know, like swung out and then caught myself with my right hand and then like pushed up to where I got my knee over his shoulder. But I've been really trying to refrain from overutilizing my strength, and I'm going more for like the king capture, you know. So like if I can grab a hold of your wrist and change the dynamic of the game, you know, where you're trying to pull me by my sleeve, and I just grab a hold of your wrist. That changes a lot. That can change a lot of the dynamic of whatever you were trying to do, you know. And so that's what I'm talking about. And I tell this to some of the white belts that I've worked with, that I feel like they're putting way too much effort into it, you know. And so it's like I started a new mantra. It's just trying to win the skirmish. Just win the skirmish. Rather than trying to win the war or even the battle. The skirmish. Got to win the skirmish. And so, I was going through that with this one guy because I felt like he was skipping some steps. And so I told him, I go, slow down a little bit. And instead of trying to get the whole movement in one, take something away. Just an inch here, just an inch there, a foot there, and take something away. Move the balance off. Change the angle. There's always one little thing that you can change in defending yourself from a submission that will not only neutralize the submission, but also put you in an advantaged position, or at least in transition into a more advantaged position than you were in. And so that's really what I've been concentrating on. And so, it's like my takedowns, I've been getting kind of lucky with, the pull down and breaking my opponent's posture a little bit, and then just a nice little foot sweep. Like I'll grab a hold of the belt, and then pull that toward me, and then kick out the leg, and then I end up on the side, something like that. Or at least that's what I did this weekend. But I did a really neat sweep. I think it was on Friday. I was kind of accused of going a little bit rough with my opponent, and I may have been. But it's like it's instinctual for me these days to try and throw my opponent. So if I've got a good grip on you when you're taking me down, I want to utilize the grip that I've got on you to neutralizing your dominant position, or in fact continuing the throw. And so the instructor asked me, he's like, "Are you trying to throw him?" I'm like, No, not trying to throw him. But we were supposed to be only defending the takedown, and I was doing that, and I saw an opportunity to not only stop him from taking me down, but also take him down at the same time. And so I took it, and of course my coach was like, "Hey, you're only supposed to be defending the takedown, not taking him down." Oh, okay. So, but the way I took him down, it just occurred to me while we were working. It's like, okay, I'm going to let him in a little bit tighter, and then I'm going to grab his hips, and I'm going to be pressuring on his hips. I'll just lean down on his hips. Then I'm going to cock them to one side, and then on the weak side, I'm going to step up, and I'm going to kick it out from under him and put him down. And that's exactly what I did. It was fucking awesome. So, it's like, it's one of those things where it occurred to me to do. It's like, if I could just tweak his balance by adjusting where his hip position is, I can put him in a compromised position, hold him in a compromised position, and then sweep the leg out from under him. And it occurred in my brain, and then I did it. I wish everything was that simple in jiu-jitsu, that I could just think about it and just do it, But the times that it actually works out that way, I'm starting to kind of get more of them. Like the white belt gentleman that I rolled with during open mat, I think I submitted him like 4 times. And they weren't like a lot of work, but it was because I was putting really good pressure on him, and I was going about things in that mindset of, I just want to win the skirmish. It's like right now the skirmish is getting to a dominant position. And so, how do I adjust his position to where I'm on top? And it's just, okay, grab him under the armpit, kick his leg up and roll him over. And those are the kinds of things. It was just coming to me like that. It's like, okay, I've won this skirmish. What's the next one? Okay, I got to isolate the arm, and go for an Americana or a Kimura. And so again, it's just little skirmishes. And I think taking the time and battling it out as a skirmish by skirmish kind of trench war kind of battle, I think that it allows me to focus a little more on the immediate thing that I'm doing, and also give me kind of a little bit more time to kind of plan out the trajectory. Like the Americana that I got on him, I wasn't really expecting to get it when I started setting it up, but I put myself in that realm and I started to isolate the arm and determine whether or not I should go for like neon belly and work it up to maybe go for an arm bar or even a dorsal what do you call that one? Kimura. But instead of doing all of that, I was watching where his hand was with part of my brain and then trying to maintain really good pressure in his position with the other. And I put my hand on his waist right above his hip, and that was kind of isolating him, keeping him a little bit pinned to the mat. And then I started playing like I was going to go for a choke. And he reached up to try and prevent that with his loose arm. And so as soon as he did that, I brought my hip right up into his armpit there. And so I took away that space. Well, I still got him pinned. And the truth of the matter is I'm playing with his neck, I'm playing with his left arm, but really what I want is that right arm. I'm trying to isolate that right arm. I'm trying to put it in a position where he gives me an opportunity to grab that wrist and just take it down. And that's exactly what happened. You know, I pushed myself away from his hip, you know, by extending my arm that I had on his hip. And he still had that arm trying to defend the choke. And as soon as he brought his other hand up, I reached right across and grabbed the wrist, put it to the ground, put my elbow next to his ear, locked it down, and fine. And it felt really good because, again, that wasn't like the immediate destination, but it's like as soon as I felt like these things are possible, it's like, okay, I can push him here and then I can tempt him with the choke here, and that's going to bring that hand closer to me, snatch the hand, apply the Americana. And so it was a really productive weekend. I put a lot of time on the mat this weekend. And actually, I probably should have put a little bit more. But honestly, that brown belt kind of wore me out. He's an older gentleman, too. It was a lot of fun. He gave me this one opportunity where I had him in my guard. And after a while, I felt like he wasn't fighting to get out of my guard. He was trying to use the proximity to me to set up things like, a choke or something to that effect. So I'm like, okay, so I don't have to worry about holding him in. And so I'm not going to waste my energy by keeping my legs locked and trying to retain him in my guard, right? And so I started experimenting from there. And that's, I've told you guys a million times on this show that that is like my biggest difficulty. It's like I've got you with my arms and I've got you with my legs, and I can't figure out which one to disengage first. It's like, do I want to disengage my legs first and go for a sweep? Do I want to disengage my arms first and angle over for maybe a Americana or Kimura? And so it's like trying to figure that out. And, again, I could be trying to work up for a triangle. But, again, prioritizing which one to disengage first, that's been my trouble before, and it's still my trouble now. But I did get an opportunity to kind of explore that particular issue a little bit with this gentleman. And so, I got him out of my guard. I got into a dominant position onto him. He reversed the dominant position, only to end up back into my guard again. And so it was like this constant fight. And I kept stalling him out. And I wasn't trying to. I was just, I was reflexively, just trying to retain him in my guard or whatever. And then, it's like after a while, it's like, okay, you know what? He's not actually trying to pull out of the guard, so I'm going to disengage the guard. I'm going to go for, putting a little pressure on the outside leg, hook the under of the left hamstring, and go for that sweep. And so it's like, again, I had a little bit of space to explore that one issue, and I had to spend a little bit more time on that. Actually, a lot more time. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to tomorrow because it's going to be color belt sparring night, and what that is as many of the colored belts as possible show up to go one-on-one with the white belts and kind of go a little bit faster, a little bit harder. Give them a little flavor tester of what comes after. I don't know. It'll be like any other day for me, I think. I don't try and put 100% on the mat, but at the same time, I do have a pretty significant pressure game, and so a lot of people have difficulty dealing with that. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music, and I'm definitely feeling it, so here it is. Body Count, Bloodlust, First Dance, here on Coin Metal.
Since the beginning of time, humans have killed each other.
And that was Sixth, with No Wishbones. And so, as far as what we're going to get into today, got a whole bunch of stuff. But the first one, I think a lot of us saw this coming, and we've been waiting for it to express itself in one way or another. Something to do with Craig Wright and the court system. There's just something about the dude and his claims and all the stuff he's done and said and all that stuff that it just seemed like he was destined to end up behind bars. And excuse me one moment, I gotta make one minor adjustment here. Alright, so let's get down to it. I think this is a short one. It's on Cointelegraph.com. Report: Craig Wright must forfeit 50% of Bitcoin in court case. The protracted legal battle involving self-proclaimed Bitcoin investor or inventor, my apologies, sir, Craig Wright, and the estate of computer scientist David Kleiman could go in Kleiman's favor. According to a court audience member on August 26th, Judge Bruce Reinhart rejected Wright's testimony, stating that he had perjured himself by providing the court with falsified documents, and recommended that he hand over 50% of the over 1 million bitcoins Kleiman mined with Wright, as well as intellectual property rights associated with Bitcoin software. The case began in February 2018 when lawyers filed the case against Wright, accusing him of stealing hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin at press time valued at over $5 billion after Kleiman's death in April 2013. While documents are currently not available regarding the ruling, an evidentiary hearing for the case was scheduled for today regarding the plaintiff's motion for sanctions/contempt on order compelling discovery. Yeah, the story is developing and will be updated as more details are forthcoming. And you know what? It's got comments. Let's check them out here. Free MPG says, anyone else concerned Wright might throw a fit and dump his 500,000 Bitcoin, or, for that matter, the Kleiman beneficiaries doing the same in response to a threat by Wright to do so. Maybe. Xblade says, short term that would suck, but long term it's great to have those coins dispersed throughout the Bitcoin ecosystem instead of in the hands of a few. I can see the point of that. Emmy Nobody says, I might be concerned about the Kleiman family dumping simply to pay off any tax bill from receiving it in the first place. Not sure how the laws work in regard to receiving lawsuit payouts, but if someone was just given 500,000 Bitcoin out of the blue, the tax man would automatically want like half of that in fiat, regardless if the receiver sold any or not. Yeah, he can want, but he can't take. And JG says, you guys know he doesn't have the coins, right? It's funny because supposedly, Mr. Craig Wright seized some hard drives from the Kleiman estate and is trying to crack them as we speak. Now, this would explain why he has any real support, other than, of course, his fallacious claims of being Satoshi Nakamoto. But beyond that, he would have to show people proof. I mean, people don't just throw millions of dollars at your project just because they like you or just because you say you're Satoshi Nakamoto. They do so because you provide them for like a public key showing the contents of your wallet, or something like that. Something to indicate that yes, you do have a shit ton of money in Bitcoin or will have access to it in the short term or in the near future. You just got to work on it for 3 years or 5 years, I think was the estimate for cracking the encryption on David Kleiman, or I guess David Kleiman, yeah, his hard drives. So yeah, I do wonder if Craig Wright does have access to enough Bitcoin to pay off this little debt, and I think that's going to cause some significant problems for the Kleimans as well, because they won't be able to collect. They won't be able to pay the tax man I'm sure the $250 million or whatever whatever outrageous amount they ask of the Kleimans in taxes for this payout. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. And from what I understand, the case isn't actually over. But I've got another one here on Crypto Slate. And this one's by Mitchell Moose. So yes, penis. Craig Wright loses Kleiman case, billions in Bitcoin awarded to the Kleiman estate. Craig Wright lost the Kleiman case. Judge ordered Wright to part with half of his pre-2014 Bitcoin worth over $5 billion to the Kleiman estate, alongside considerable intellectual property. The Southern District Court of Florida Magistrate Bruce Reinhart recommended that Kleiman's estate be awarded half of the Bitcoin and intellectual property Wright held prior to 2014. In 2018, Ira Kleiman, the brother of Wright's late business partner Dave Kleiman, sued Craig Wright for allegedly attempting to appropriate the estate's massive 1.1 million BTC holdings held in a family trust. These coins were jointly owned between Wright and Kleiman. Over the course of the year-long court battle, it appeared that Craig Wright was attempting to forge documents and lie under penalty of perjury in an attempt to claim right over Kleiman's $5 billion in Bitcoin. These coins were acquired through Florida-based W&K Info Defense Research, a company the two used to mine during the early days of the protocol. Today, the judge reaffirmed that Craig Wright was indeed acting in bad faith in court. The judge rejected Wright's testimony, found that he had perjured himself, found him in contempt of court, and found that he falsified documents according to court documents. That said, the judge did not determine whether Wright was Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, though his behavior in court certainly calls into question his claims to the title. Meanwhile, shortly after the ruling, Craig Wright's partner, Calvin Ayre, insinuated that Bitcoin SV won't be impacted by the ruling. Calvin Ayre's tweet, though Craig Satoshi and this will be obvious to all in time, it is already to everyone smart. This is now moot. Real Bitcoin BSV is beyond any one person now. It is the world's top utility platform with its unique in the world massive scaling, and Craig did this for sure. Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't know that he actually wrote a hell of a lot of code. From what I understand, he didn't. Anyway, continuing on. On Bitfinex, Bitcoin SV is down roughly 4% in terms of BTC since the news broke. However, given the lack of liquidity and high concentration of BSV ownership among entities related to Wright et al., the real impact of the event may not be accurately reflected in market activity. That said, should Wright sell his BSV holdings to satisfy the ruling, then the thinly traded Bitcoin SV markets may be devastated. The loss in the Kleiman case follows the dismissal of another case in a UK court where Wright claimed that Roger Ver had defamed him. The judge said there was little evidence suggesting Wright's reputation was harmed and that the US was a better jurisdiction to render a judgment. With the substantive issues in the Kleiman case settled, now the court will need to determine how to collect the whopping 550,000 Bitcoin from Wright. The answer likely involves selling a whole lot of Bitcoin SV. Yeah, that could be bad. That could be very, very bad. I actually don't have any BSV. I had some for a short period of time and I liquidated them. And according to the prices, it was probably a good idea too. From what I saw last time, it was already below what I had sold it at. So it's like, okay, I kind of made a little bit of money on that one. But let's see where it's at right now. I'm looking at the Bitcoin BSV chart. And yeah, it's actually significantly under the price that I sold it at. So, and that was a long time ago too. I mean, I sold it a long time ago. So, I mean, it's had a lot of its time above that price, and I felt kind of like an idiot for having sold it as early as I did. And especially considering the performance of some of the stuff that I had bought with the money that I made from BSV. So, yeah, I'm not the best trader in the world, and that's certainly a testament to it. But how it will impact BSV in the longer term, we've seen coins go through worse. But I mean, I'm looking at this 24-hour chart, and I don't know. It could be in for a significant dip in the not so distant future, but these things are not just a flash in the pan. Cryptocurrencies are not just a flash in the pan. As long as there's a live network, as long as there's demand for the block space on the network, those networks will stay live. And that's the same with it being either Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or BSV or whatever. And you can wish these coins gone, but if they have a vibrant community and they do have customers that are utilizing their coins or services available through their coins, then there's really, you can just jog on. You can just go worry about your own portfolio and not really worry about talking shit about other people's shit. I think that's the one thing I've disliked seeing the most in crypto is that it's not enough for some that your coin is doing well or does certain things better than others. It's not enough to just indicate that, but some of you get kind of vicious about it. That's kind of disappointing. The fact of the matter is that we're not in a monopolar or monopolar market here. There are plenty of other options other than Bitcoin and Ethereum and the top 10 cryptocurrencies that are out there right now. And that's the freedom to decide which one to invest in, and the values of the coin and the individuals behind it should actually matter to you. Because we are talking about your money. We are talking about your monetary value. And if these people don't have a good reputation, or if they have a reputation of fucking up, you kind of get where I'm going here. It's like if you need to be evaluating those kind of things when deciding where to entrust your monetary value. And there's no government or organization out there that can make the market safe for you. Your own intuition, your own preferences, your own biases. Let those guide you. Let those make the decisions for you. But do not trust in other people, and certainly do not trust in government entities to look out for you, because the best they can do is provide a court to maybe determine some resolution to an issue between you and another individual. But, as we're seeing in this Kleiman case, the likelihood that Dave Kleiman's estate, or Ira Kleiman will ever receive that Bitcoin is very, very slim. I mean, I think that we might see some sort of dip in BSV because of it. But in the longer term, again, if there are people still using the coin, and there's still people out there that are constituting the network and providing the hashing power for it, the coin will live on. I mean, I think it's a really ambitious angle that they're pursuing, but they really need to work on making it more accessible to smaller miners. Those big blocks are wonderful. Got a lot of transactions in them. But the majority of the planet doesn't have the bandwidth capability to make it worth it. So, I mean, that this is a point that I keep running into with a lot of BSV fans, is they envision it with, there being a few hash farms out there that are handling all of it, right? Well, what does that bring about? That brings about centralization. You end up with just a few really, really large entities out there running the whole thing. And you have to trust in them, that they won't be double spending themselves all fucking day long. So again, there are risks and there are incentives. And if you're not paying attention to either one, it could work out poorly for you. And I think we're experiencing that with Bitcoin, where there's all this pressure to go off chain, right? Well, they omit the fact that as is doing on-chain transactions, we circumvent virtually all regulatory entities and frameworks out there right now. We're exchanging property between individuals without third parties, right? When it's used like that, Bitcoin does not need any regulation. The regulation is baked in. Either the transaction completes or it does not. Either the transaction is in a valid format or it is not. That takes all the guesswork out of it. That takes all the trust out of it. And it takes all the need for regulation out of it. Now, when you do an on-chain transaction to set up an off-chain payment channel, now you've created a separate thing, a separate network whose traffic is unto itself. And there's watchtowers, I guess. I don't know what the status is on watchtowers, that are supposedly monitoring the state of the channels and the state of the funds in the channels at all times. But again, we're trusting now. This is down to a fiduciary to be saying, yes, these are good transactions. No, this is not an adversarial actor. Yes, this is an adversarial actor. The funds go to this guy because of this adversarial actor. The adversarial actor tried to steal from this Frank. So we're going to give Frank all of the adversarial actor's money and resolve it that way. Dude, that's like a big legal battle right there. There could be conditions or reasons why the guy was trying to, apparently, according to the network anyway, rip off Frank. So again, these are the points where you enter into legality, and you're going to end up in court, and you're going to end up like Craig. But again, if you can avoid all of that by doing the transaction on chain, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do the transaction on chain? As a matter of fact, why wouldn't you be a miner? I saw something the other day. It was claiming that it was trying to discourage people from talking about full nodes, because basically a full node, as defined in the Bitcoin white paper is more or less a miner, and that a non-mining node would be just a listening device, more or less. But my feeling on non-mining nodes is this: is if you're going to dedicate hardware and electricity and bandwidth to something involving Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency, you should be mining it. By mining it, you shorten the number of hops that the transactions have to make to cross the network. By mining it, you are potentially rewarded with Bitcoin for the successful finding of a block and propagating it across the network before anybody else. And this potential still exists. I mean, if you look on the network, there's not billions and billions of computers, but there are billions and billions of potential cryptocurrency users. You slap a few GPUs on each of those desks, and now we're talking about a real fucking network. And when you have that many people that are mining, they can be deciding how they want to mine, what they want to mine. And those decisions, I believe, will have very large impacts in our economy. I mean, but that's kind of the future I see with regard to cryptocurrencies. That basically we're going to turn mining into something like a video game console. You know, if you can imagine the number of people out there that have an Xbox, you know, any variation of an Xbox. All right, now replace that with a miner. And maybe you have a small standalone computer on there that you can play video games on and stuff while you're mining. I don't know how it will work out, but that's pretty much where I see the future of mining. And I know some people envision this whole thing of, you know, big ass warehouses full of nothing but miners, and I can see the trend toward that. But I really believe in the much longer term, we're going to be seeing just smaller units, but more of them, a lot more of them. And that as more people actually get interested in cryptocurrencies, that mining is going to be a natural progression from them. I see it all the time on my Twitter feed, where people are asking other miners, you know, hey, what's the best setup that I can get into the game now? You know, I haven't been doing it for a couple years, and I really want to get back to mining. You know, what's the best miners I should be buying right now for this price range? You know, that tells me that the interest in cryptocurrencies and the interest in mining them specifically is increasing. And I really believe that in the longer term, this is going to initiate another alt bloom. That the people that are mining right now, if they're young enough, that in the not so distant future, they're going to have learned enough by mining to work out the incentives behind mining a little bit better for themselves, and decide, you know what, it'd be pretty cool if other people were doing this too. And then so they'll put out their code, and next thing you know, we'll have the next stage of cryptocurrency mining. And like I said, I believe that the transition is going to be more towards individual participants, and that's not to say getting rid of what do you call it? What do you call that when you have one miner and then a whole bunch of others tuning in? Mining pool, or pool mining. I think that will continue, but I also believe that we are going to transition to more individuals using cryptocurrency mines, or mining cryptocurrency with hardware. My apologies, I'm kind of off on it. Anyway, I need some caffeine, so let's go ahead and throw down into some music, and a little bit of Skindred for you, Machine, here on Coin Metal. And that was Clutch with Space Grass. And yeah, you know who's driving. Anyway, the first one I got up after this music break was it's on Cointelegraph, and who authored this thing? It's by Max Body, and this is authored, let's see, approximately 5 hours ago, so it's relatively current. VMware CEO Gelsinger condemns Bitcoin as bad design, bad for humanity. Where have we heard that before? Pat Gelsinger, the CEO of a major cloud computing and virtual machine company, VMware, has condemned Bitcoin as being, quote, bad for humanity. Fortune spoke to Gelsinger about Bitcoin prior to VMware's annual conference in San Francisco on August 26th. According to Gelsinger, one issue with Bitcoin is its purportedly high energy consumption, which contributes to climate change, Gelsinger said. Guy's full of shit. Quote, it takes the energy of a home, half a home a day, and a home, half a home a day to do a single entry into a Bitcoin ledger. It's climate intolerant. It's so extreme, it is bad design. Gelsinger also claimed that people primarily use Bitcoin for illicit activities and that overall, quote, it is bad for humanity. Gelsinger reportedly remains neutral on blockchain technology itself, instead viewing Bitcoin as an unfortunate misuse of that tech. Bullshit, dude. Where do you think this shit came from? Fucking dipshit. Energy concerns around Bitcoin. Bunch of bullshit. Bitcoin's electricity demands have been a concern for energy-conscious persons in the past. As previously reported by Cointelegraph, data consultant and blockchain specialist Alex DeVries has spoken about the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining. He said, quote, we know that mining is done with coal electricity. Actually, 75% of all Bitcoin mining or all cryptocurrency mining is coming from renewable energy sources. Asshole. But also with renewable energy. Yeah, 75% of fucking renewable energy, asshole. In the latter case, we don't know what we are displacing. Plus, renewable energy never has zero lifetime carbon footprint either. Okay, we're going to step off right there. You cannot tell me the electricity generated from the fucking solar panel that you invest in does not offset a cost for you. I guarantee you it will offset the cost of all the electricity it generates. And electricity itself, I believe, will get more expensive, at least in the short term. But I want to comment again a little more after this, continuing on. The more energy Bitcoin uses, the more it will impact the environment for sure. It's not helping us reach our climate goals. Yeah, whatever. You want to go back to a fucking torch in a cave. In a recent study this June, cryptocurrency research firm CoinShares estimated that 74.1% of Bitcoin mining is powered by renewable energy, echoing Trump and the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Gelsinger's remarks about Bitcoin being used for crime echo those made by United States Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin in July. Mnuchin said he believes that, quote, cryptocurrencies have been dominated by illicit activities and speculation, and further stated, quote, cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin have been exploited to support billions of dollars of illicit activity like cybercrime, tax evasion, that's what you're really concerned about, extortion, ransomware, illicit drugs, human trafficking. This is indeed a national security issue. It's a bunch of bullshit. As is his habit, President Donald Trump took to Twitter to criticize cryptocurrency earlier this year by saying he was, quote, not a fan of cryptocurrencies. However, the industry responded positively to the tweet, and Bitcoin's price was largely unaffected. Yeah. So, I've said this before, that I believe that Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency mining in general is going to save all of us. And let me expand on that. One of the big problems with renewable sources of electricity is that they are not geographically dependent, meaning they are not monopolizable by those who have contracts to drill in specific places for oil or dig in specific places for coal. or natural gas or anything else that they rend out of the ground. Okay, those people get to determine the price of the thing that they harvest out of the ground to some extent. There's other pressures in the market, other suppliers and whatnot, but for the most part, they get to say, hey, you know what? It took us a long time and a lot of energy to get this coal out of the ground, so we're going to charge you, $10 million per cubic ton, or whatever. The point being that these energy sources are isolated, meaning they're monopolizable. All you have to do is either own the land or own the contracts to harvest it, and you've got some sort of a clinch in the market. Now, all of that gets thrown up in the air when people start using tidal waves or tide water generation for electricity. Okay, and we've got gigatons worth of fucking electricity capacity, energy capacity, renewable energy capacity all around us. I got a river less than 2 miles away from my house, could electrify this entire fucking valley on its own. But no. We have to be restricted to receiving our energy from only a few sources, our electricity from only a few sources. We can't invest in this shit on our own property without getting some sort of bullshit permit that offsets the entire benefit of displacing your electricity bill entirely, because you have to pay for some sort of permit to construct it on your property or some bullshit like that. But the point I'm getting to is one of the problems with renewables is that there hasn't been enough incentive. Okay, there's not enough incentive for the market to open up and say, hey, we want you to generate as much fucking electricity as you possibly can on the piece of land that you have. If you have a fucking creek going through your property, hook up some hydroelectric stuff to it. If you've got wind going across your property, put up some fucking windmills. If you've got a lot of sun, put up a lot of solar panels. But generate electricity with your property, with your private property, and sell it onto the grid and profit from that. Because there's going to be that much demand for local electricity, local energy. I believe that we've been entirely too squeamish about that, and if we were really capitalists, we'd get the fuck out of our neighbor's way when they want to do something like that on their own fucking property. We just shut the fuck up about it. When they want to grow their crops on their front yard and share their food with everybody, you just shut the fuck up about it. They're helping everybody. When you want to do it on your property, you don't have to tell anybody about it. It's your property. If you want to use it to harvest some sort of crop, be it tomatoes or corn or whatever, that's up to you. I think we've allowed too much encroachment on our property rights by government. And it's just a bunch of fucking busybodies. Oh, how else can we extort money out of people? I know. We'll make them rent their property from the federal government and the state government. You don't really own it. You just rent it from us. Now give us $1 million to buy that piece of property. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Rent that piece of property. It's just fucking ridiculous. And I think these are the kinds of systems that cryptocurrencies will eventually break. When we consider cryptocurrencies as property and we're exchanging like for like, property for property, that property could be anything. If it's not registered anywhere, though, it's a private transfer between you and another individual. And to my knowledge, I don't believe there is a means of taxing that. Not if you and your partnering in commerce don't want to give any kind of consideration to anybody else. And when we look at cryptocurrency transactions on the blockchain, we can see that there's no taxes being applied to these. And the likelihood that they're being reported anywhere, that the transfers themselves are being reported anywhere, is very, 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 very low. Low. And that being said, when we're talking about property taxes and whatnot, you have to assess that people even have the property. And I believe that that's one of the places where large cryptocurrency mining centers are going to suffer, because they're going to become the target of additional taxation. And soon that's going to offset the whatever gain you actually get by having huge-ass mining farms. But there again, I believe that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies will hyper-incentivize the probability of having, or it will hyper-incentivize installing some sort of renewable energy source on your own property. And again, I think that that's been the big issue with it. It's like, okay, we can't limit the access to it by sucking it out of one place. I had this discussion with my old man the other day. We were talking about hemp, and he still doesn't believe me on this, but if you look up Jack Herrera and read The Emperor Has No Clothes, you'll understand a lot of things about the history about between the government and hemp that isn't widely publicized or hasn't been. And really, we do owe it all to Jack Herrera. All the legalization push, we owe it all to him. Because what happened was, and I believe I've actually seen the video myself, in not anywhere else other than the television. I mean, and I'm talking about like back in the 70s, maybe even the 80s at the latest. But it was this video, it's called Hemp for Victory. And it was this video or this reel-to-reel film that the federal government distributed throughout the United States to be shown to farmers because they needed hemp. They banned it back in, I think it was like 1917 or nationally, I think it was 1937. Okay. And they did that through Marijuana Tax Act or some shit like that. They completely fucked up the hemp market. So in the 40s, there were only a few other sources of hemp. And so those sources were being slowly eliminated by the Japanese. And so we had to grow the shit locally. And so there was this film, this Hemp for Victory. And what it shows me at least is that there was a time in this country when hemp was one of the primary textiles that America ran on. It was the number one cash crop for a long time. For several centuries, as a matter of fact. But when we broke away from having hemp, it changed not only the agricultural to industrial, it also changed the source of revenue. Because the source of revenue wasn't coming from farmers anymore, it was coming from bankers. Bankers were willing to upfront the money for certain activities to go on while not giving money for other things to go on. If they didn't like your political campaign, they wouldn't support it. That kind of thing. But it changed the whole dynamic because before then, farmers, they were the primary employers. So they were the primary sources of income for everybody. And there were several things that limited the source of income by coinage, and then eventually by issuance, by who was actually creating the value. And that's when we transitioned from things like hempanol, diesel. Diesel was originally biodiesel. It was originally derived from vegetable oils and vegetable tailings. That's how diesel was invented. Anyway, continuing on. Those were the sources of fuel beforehand, and then we switched over to oil, and that changed everything because instead of the farmers being able to create their own energy source, by renting diesel and ethanol and other byproducts off of their farming tailings, including their hemp, by changing it over to oil, it made them dependent on the oil people. And dependent on the banks. And this this whole cycle pretty much wintered it down to where property ownership for Americans has been kind of challenging, but I believe that we're coming into a different phase of things where the legalization of cannabis, I don't even think we're going to be calling it different things from hemp or marijuana in the not so distant future. I would say within the next probably 2 to 5 years, we'll just go back to calling it cannabis, because everybody's going to be growing it. Anybody who has any land is going to be growing it. And we're going to be using it for a lot of shit. I think it was Popular Mechanics about a century ago almost. Or Popular, I can't remember if it was like some sort of science journal or if it was Popular Mechanics. I think it might have been Popular Mechanics. They were predicting that hemp would be $1 billion crop. Well, I think it'll be a multi-billion-dollar crop. Whether it's sold as quote-unquote marijuana that you smoke, or hemp that you make everything out of and you run your shit on. But I think now that we've broken down the biggest wall with regard to the legalization of marijuana, that now we are going to transition back to getting some of our energy, our renewable energy, out of byproducts off of hemp. That we're going to go back to hemp and all. I read about this a long time ago. I want to say close to a decade ago online about a kid in, I think it was Canada. It might have been one of the northern states, but I believe it was Canada. He outfitted his vehicle to run on biodiesel that was derived from hemp, and he got an average of about 30 miles to the gallon. But he traveled all over the place with this thing. And I think that in the not so distant future, he's going to be seen as like some sort of pioneer, where it's like, this is an example that this one guy, with a little bit of assistance here and there, of course, was able to do, where he was able to rend the fuel for his vehicle. He was able to refit his vehicle to where it could actually burn on that fuel source. And he drove it like 26,000 miles or some shit like that. I mean, it's some obscene amount of distance. But the point being is, it was a demonstration. It's like, yes, this can be done. We can affordably create a fuel source from hemp to fuel cars on. Now, when you recategorize the discussion like that, all of this woe about coal and oil and all that, I believe it's temporary. I think that the cost differentials that these new sources of energy create will cause coal and gas to stay relatively affordable until we've transitioned entirely off of them. That there'll be just a flex in demand and supply there. As more energy sources come online, the demand for the gas goes down, and so in relative terms it stays about the same in price. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's just how it seems to me. Anyway, I found this really humorous because of the previous article that we just read, where this guy from the CEO from VMware is talking shit about Bitcoin and its energy consumption. This next one's on Coindesk.com, and it's by William Foxley. So yes, penis. This is authored August 26, 2019 at 17:30 UTC. Australian Securities Exchange building new blockchain platform with VMware digital asset. The Australian Securities Exchange, ASX, is teaming up with fintech firm Digital Asset and VMware to move its current exchange platform onto distributed ledger technology. Announced today, ASX and Digital Asset have signed a three-party Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, to build a replacement platform for the existing Clearinghouse Electronic Sub-Register System, CHESS, into DLT. MOUs are usually non-binding documents that point to a company's intention. Begun in 2015, ASX plans on the new DLT platform to be set up and running by spring of 2021. As of now, 30 to 40% of the new platform is available to replace chess. Speaking with ZDNet, ASX Deputy CEO Peter Hyom said ASX said the MOU will help it expand both product offerings and service locations across Australia and New Zealand. Quote, "This new partnership is a very positive development and will help us support a wider range of DLT solutions developed by the industry. It confirms our belief in the potential of DLT as we remain on track to deliver the chess replacement system in March to April 2021. ASX is also using Digital Assets open source blockchain focused language DAML for the project. ASX's current platform handles some 2 trillion Australian dollars in registered equities, along with 5 billion Australian units, or Australian dollars, I guess, AU, whatever that is, billion processed per day. Yeah, DLT. Suck a dick. I think in the not-so-distant future, we're going to see one of these quote-unquote DLT things hacked. And significantly. You know, people put too much faith in the idea of being able to contain the privacy of your network while isolating yourself from other people being able to mine it. I mean, there is a reason why we have distributed miners all over the fucking planet, and it's security. They're all individuals, and they're all in it to win it. And because they're driven on their own incentives, you know, their own risk threshold and all that, that creates an incentive to do it the right way. Creates more of an incentive to do it the right way and play by the rules of the network than to deviate. Because the likelihood of you actually succeeding in fucking over the rest of the network is much lower than actually successfully mining. But that whole incentive structure goes away when you're the only ones mining it. I mean, what incentive do I have to make sure that I don't subvert Overstock or Goldman Sachs or somebody else's private little network? I mean, I've got a greater incentive in assaulting it. I've got a greater incentive to try and gank their money than I do to make my own thing, because they're going to be dealing in billions of dollars. And if I can find a way to siphon that shit out to me, you bet your ass I'm going to try. You know, especially when the return for doing so doesn't harm some other cryptocurrency. It doesn't harm some public cryptocurrency. It doesn't do anything to Doge or Ethereum or Bitcoin or XRP. Well, maybe XRP, but certainly not like Bitcoin Cash or Verge. It's not going to impact them in the least. If anything, it'll probably improve their reputation versus these private little DLTs. You know, how you document your transactions is all on you. You know, and what I mean by that is that you could be doing all of the transactions for your business and whatever on the Bitcoin network, on the Ethereum network, on the Litecoin network, on the Verge network, on any of these networks. And no one else on the planet will know it's you, unless of course you fuck up and you associate some metadata to it and whatever. But I mean, it is conceivable, and it's not all that difficult, meaning you don't need a college degree to do it, to set yourself up to where you're receiving and delivering payments in a private fashion. As a matter of fact, the threshold has never been lower. And as I said before, I expect it to get even lower than it is now. But the point being that we're not dependent on any one system anymore. And that makes the possibility of changing how we do business with one another is all on us. It's like ignorance, remaining ignorant about somebody or something. It is a choice these days. It's like if you're challenged with something and you don't immediately try and resolve that cognitive dissonance between what you've been told and what you believed, if you aren't doing that on your own, that's your own fault. The resources are certainly available for you to resolve that. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I got some Slipknot playing in the background, but we've already touched on Slipknot, so let's see here. We played some Body. We haven't played any Between the Buried and Me, or any Black Dahlia Murder for that matter. But I think this one's appropriate. Beastie Boys, Sabotage, here on Coin Metal. And that was Death Clock with The Gears. Alright, as we're coming into our last hour, or about halfway through it actually, got this article here on BitcoinNews.com. Patrick Byrne departs, but overstocks still long on crypto. This is authored August 26, 2019, and here we go. No change of tack by new CEO. Overstock's new interim boss, Jonathan Johnson, said that he has no plans to change the current model and was, quote, all in on, quote, blockchain. Johnson told CoinDesk, quote, the fact that I am stepping into the CEO role means more of the same and more of the same focus for our blockchain business. Since it first accepted Bitcoin over 5 years ago, courtesy Patrick Byrne, there have been a number of developments for the firm, which now has two divisions: Overstock.com Retail and Medici Ventures, which is the blockchain arm. According to Forbes, the blockchain subsidiary has a number of small ventures under its wing labeled as, quote, Keiretsu, a Japanese term which describes companies with overlapping interests. Medici Ventures has plans to expand its network of blockchain and crypto-focused big businesses. It currently has 18 portfolio companies working together on various blockchain projects. However, the growth will not be as rapid as the past 3 years, according to the new CEO, who added that he would like to see, quote, more crypto assets accepted by the retail division. I would love to see Overstock accepting Ravencoin. I just think that would be great. My view is any kind of widely accepted cryptocurrency, Overstock should be accepting. Goddamn right! Ravencoin is currently ranked at number 40 in terms of market cap, so is hardly one of the top altcoins. It has been as lackluster as the rest of them this year, dumping over 50% since June. When asked about the, quote, security token trading platform T0, Johnson added that he was fully behind the project. He continued, stating that bringing in quality tokens would be a priority for the platform rather than announcing a timeline. He also mentioned two other blockchain subsidiaries in the Keiretsu, Bit and Votes, a voting platform about which he added, quote, someday in the not-so-distant future, everyone's voting on mobile phones on a blockchain app and will wonder, quote, how did we do it the old way? I don't think that's going to be a wonder, dude. The message so far has been quite clear. There will be no major change in direction from the retail pioneer and a greater focus on blockchain and crypto, which will be bullish for the wider industry. What do you think about Overstock's decision to stay in the crypto bandwagon? Let us know in the comments below. Let me see if there are any. Are there any comments on this thing? I don't see it. but it might be because I don't let them put ads on. So anyway, Overstock, apparently they're not going to get off the crypto bandwagon and seem to be wanting to get even deeper into it. Honestly, I think that's a solid move for any retailer. What they really need to be focusing on with regard to their cryptocurrency section is no KYC, no AML. We're talking about retail transactions here. You know, if all you're doing is providing a portal for the transaction to happen through, as long as your participation in it isn't somehow exclusive or anything like that, I think you're in the clear. As long as you're not custodying anybody's funds or anybody's hardware that they're manufacturing or services that they're providing, as long as you're not hosting any of those things, I don't think you really have a fiduciary responsibility, at least beyond the responsibility for, providing a solid platform for the transfer to take place on. But really, that's the long and short of your responsibilities if you were an entity in Overstock's position. At least that's the way I read it. I regard cryptocurrency transactions and the economy thereof to be an entirely separate thing from the United States economy, from the global economy, in the sense that it isn't dependent on fiat currencies. It isn't dependent on the decisions of central bankers. So it is not their property. And I'll make one exception there, as far as beyond their own participation in it. So if, AXA owns Blockstream, which manages the Bitcoin repository and is also providing about 6 to 7% of the network's hashing power. If they decide to, make some decision that affects the rest of the cryptosphere, we do have the choice to bail out on them and shift over to other coins. But it was about that centralization that we were talking about earlier. If that becomes, if that exceeds your personal risk threshold, if you're looking at it and saying, you know what, Ravencoin would be a much better tool for me to use, it's perfectly available to you. And if Overstock really wants to profit, I think that's the position that they should be trying to play. Because as I stated before, that kind of interaction doesn't require a lot of the friction that current retail experiences. I think because you're actually transacting in an entity that is not state managed, regardless of which cryptocurrency it is, unless of course we're talking about a national cryptocurrency like they've been talking about doing in India and China and elsewhere. I think the presentation and the availability of things like Doge or Litecoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin, I think the availability of those kind of negates the idea of really centralized coins. We see some people liking XRP, but a lot of people dislike Ripple. Because to them it represents nothing better than what they're trying to shift away from. And again, it's those types of value systems, those types of metrics that you'll be making your decisions on. And while a government may at some point or another be helpful in helping you make that decision, ultimately the decision is left to you. And again, because these things are not managed by a government, and they are not managed by a bank, they are not the property of either. They are the property of those that are participating in the mining of them, and whomever they may transfer those to. But again, we're talking about market spheres that are completely outside of the legal sphere, that our regulatory bodies actually manage. And it's a good thing, because the people have not had access to this, but bankers have had access to these types of markets. Governments have had access to these types of markets, but not the average person. Well, with cryptocurrencies, that changed. And I believe that's going to prove to be an excellent change in the future, especially considering what I'm about to read to you guys. And this is actually on Reddit. Shadow banking is back from the brink of the 2007 collapse. In 2007, while the credit crisis... let's see, this is authored by Puzzler, I guess. Posted by Puzzler, a Redditor for 3 months. In 2007, while the credit crisis was hitting the world, one major problem came in sight. At that time, the global total shadow banking was estimated at $50 trillion. The shadow banking system, an unregulated banking system full of off-balance sheet securitizations, asset-backed commercial papers, credit default swaps, and other crap no one has any idea about. The names nor the functioning of the products. In the report from the ESRB from 2017, they say that the current shadow banking in 2017, only in the EU zone, was $42 trillion, approximately $46.5 trillion. In a 2017 IMF paper, I see estimates around 150% of GDP. The UOB Global Research Report, there is a range of estimates for the size of shadow banking in China. Based on UOB's estimation, shadow financing in China soared 65% to RMB 45 trillion, 55% of GDP in 2017. Although other sources even indicate way more crazy numbers on China's shadow banking. On Wikipedia, you can even find estimates that shadow banking may be bigger than $100 trillion in 2012-2016. Holy shit. Shadow banking, something few people know about and fewer people actually understand all the products. No regulations, not even after 2007, yet we have learned nothing from the past. 10 years later, we have at least doubled our quote problem, which nearly destroyed the world economy in 2007. That's pretty fucked up. Well, let's see what some of the responses are for this. And let's see, Puzzler, I just want to remember Bitcoin did this. Yeah, whatever. And what does 1,000 get you for your hobby? Let's see if we can find some of the replies for this thing. Let's see here. There. Maybe. No. Anyway, I think it's extremely humorous here, but we do have some responses on it. Where the hell did I put it? Okay. Thanks, I like the text explainer on this site. Blah, blah, blah. Eurodollar University Overview. Yeah, there's not much there, really. Anyway, that's very interesting, because the shadow banking issue that this guy's talking about, it was one of those things that precipitated the global monetary collapse in 2008, 2009, that needed TARP and all that other shit. And that's what created the necessity for Bitcoin. And I think because of that, we are going to see some very interesting things in the future. Only this time around, we are going to see a flight to using cryptocurrencies, and we are going to see an increase in both the number of cryptocurrencies and the amount of commerce that's actually happening because of them. But where I see these big institutionals fitting into it, I see a lot of them just dying and going away. I mean, Coinbase may survive and whatnot, but ultimately I think their regulatory friction that they currently experience will be enough to take them down as well. But I could be wrong. Anyway, I had some additional stuff in here. I'm trying to find it. No, it's not it. No, it's not it. Bunch of UFO stuff. No more Craig Wright. I don't really want to talk more about him. But here we go. That's kind of interesting. We may go with it. I don't know. Let's go with it. This one's on Cointelegraph.com. Brazil's central bank adopts IMF guidelines for crypto classification. This is really interesting concerning the fact they don't really have any authority to dictate to you what type of thing you have already. But anyway, continuing on. The Central Bank of Brazil has moved to classify bought or sold cryptocurrency assets per International Monetary Fund guidelines. Brazil's central bank announced its decision on August 26th. With the new classification under IMF standards, traded cryptocurrencies will be classified as non-financial products and as such will be accounted as goods on the central bank's balance sheet. A central bank's balance sheet, just like a regular bank's balance sheet, summarizes its financial position and is made up of assets, equities, and liabilities. Since purchasing and selling cryptocurrency involves the execution of foreign exchange contracts, the central bank considers selling and buying crypto assets in their export and import statistics. Moreover, because Brazil is a net importer of crypto assets, this apparently has contributed to lowering the trade surplus on its balance sheet. Significance of cryptocurrencies on the bank's balance sheet. According to Cointelegraph Brazil, the classification of cryptocurrencies as goods is significant. Recognition of cryptocurrencies as property would purportedly make them eligible to be used as a payment mechanism. The central bank notes that these classifications were recommended by the Balance of Payments Statistics Committee, an advisory committee to the IMF Statistics Department that focuses on external sector statistics methodology. IMF calls for scrutiny on Libra. As previously reported by Cointelegraph, IMF chief economist Gita Gopinath joined other officials in recommending that regulators be vigilant in observing and taking action against Facebook's proposed cryptocurrency, Libra. Gopinath specifically called on global regulators to act immediately. Gopinath cited some specific concerns about Libra too, saying, quote, "If you look particularly at countries that are not reserve currency countries, this would lead to backdoor dollarization. All of these questions and whether there will be enough checks and balances in place to prevent money laundering are very important and will go unresolved." Yeah, and so there you have it. Making a bunch of noises about shit that they really have no business trying to regulate. You know, basically, cryptocurrencies are the world taking responsibility for their own finances, seizing that control out of the entities' hands, such as like the IMF and the CFTC and the SEC and all that other bullshit. They allow you individually to make these decisions. How will I store and transact my monetary value? Will I be a producer of monetary value or a consumer? Simply an end user? Or will I contribute to a network out there? These decisions are for you to make and nobody else to make for you. And I believe that at some point or another, these guys are going to understand their real dependence on us, and that a lot of the scare tactics that we've heard over the last, pretty much since the beginning of Bitcoin, concerns about energy consumption and so on, I think that they'll fall by the wayside when the greater utility is known by more people. When more people do their first cryptocurrency transaction, and they're not even limited to Bitcoin in that, they could be transacting Raven coin for the first time. But once they see it happen, Once they've completed a transaction and gotten over the excitement and glee over it, that you've just done something that only banks used to be able to do, and a lot faster than they ever did it too. Once you see that and understand the vast power that you're actually wielding in your own hand, the temptation to give it up or put it under the control of some massive entity like the IMF goes down. It's like, no, I don't need you to dictate to me the monetary policy of this coin. This is software running on my machine. I will determine the market rate that I sell my coins at. And whoever wants them will buy them at the price that I give it to them at. And these controls, again, used to be only banks, big old central banks could do this shit. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. And that genie is not going back in the bottle. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. As far as our last dance is concerned, let's see, we got about 5 minutes, roughly about 5 minutes left. Let's see what we can stuff in those 5 minutes. Metallica? No, Metallica. Wait a minute, maybe some Megadeth. Maybe. Oh, maybe that one? Let's go with a little bit of Peace Sells. Last Dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. Good night.